Greetings and welcome to another powerful edition of the Community Defender Talk Show, one powerful hour of truth in a day of falsehood. I'm your host, Brother Daryl Muhammad, and we're so glad that you have tuned in to tonight's program. Of course, you know, this is the first Community Defender of the year 2020. And of course, a lot of people are on social media talking about their vision and how they want their vision to be that clear 2020 vision. And of course, you know, we know that they're talking from a mental and spiritual perspective. And what we have tried to contribute here on the Community Defender Talk Show is that perspective that would give people clarity in their mental and spiritual realm. We want to give our people that kind of clarity. We are in another 6 months. We will be at 21 years of broadcasting here at the Community Defender from the city of Lafayette now to 5 parishes. And of course, we're grateful to Almighty God, Allah, for the opportunity to be able to speak to everybody and to use our voice in a responsible way rather than the irresponsible way that often our media does. And so we opened up with something. The director had chosen something that would kind of set the tone for our first program in the year 2020. And of course, we're going to be speaking on the topic of 2020 lies versus 2020 truth. And as you know, when you look at the mainstream media, you're going to get lies. People are going to lie to you. They're going to give you half-truths to steer the American people in the wrong direction. And even though we would love for the American people, the greater people of America, to be steered in the right direction, we do not apologize for our focus here as the Community Defender being black people and steering black people in the right direction. But of course, anybody that watches the program, no matter what your complexion, you should be able to have an appreciation for the truthful perspective that we bring here. And again, our motivation is the resurrection and rise of a people who need to be raised up and who must be unified. As you know, we get much of our inspiration from the man whose picture is behind me, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. And as some people say, when we're on the television or radio, we're not afraid to use the F word on air. And that F word is Farrakhan. We're not afraid to use the F word on the air. Many people are, but not us. Now, I wanted to, of course, we're going to be getting into a couple of things. Now, I wanted to mention, as we start, the first homicide of 2020 was initially in Baton Rouge, was initially thought to be an overdose. Okay? It was almost like self-inflicted. And there was really no real investigation. And I guess just another black person dead. They sent the body to the funeral home, and it was the funeral home, not the coroner, that found the bullet wound, which was the real cause of death. Now we're looking at something totally different. And it underscores the point that black life, even in a city that has a black mayor and a black police chief, even in a city that is majority black, yet there is this carelessness in dealing with and caring for black lives, black people, even by many of us who are in an official capacity. So I hope that the mayor, as well as the police chief in the city of Baton Rouge, will get to the bottom of this. I hope that there'll be some shoe leather on somebody's gluteus maximus over this situation, because this is really an embarrassment for a funeral home, people who are not even trained, that were able to come back and tell you, no, it wasn't an overdose. And because you see a prescription, you just make an assumption and assume because it's in a certain part of town that must have been the cause of death and don't even look into it. That's really a shame in this modern time for those kind of mistakes to be made and for you to be so callous about what you do in the black community. Now I want to move real quickly because we got a lot to cover. We're dealing with 2020 lies versus 2020 vision. 2020 truth. Now I want to read something from a book that Minister Farrakhan wrote some time ago. And then we're going to go to a 4-minute clip dealing with this, the latest attack that Donald Trump made on the nation of Iran and calling himself a peacemaker, but he's really a warmonger. And whoever is advising this dumb bastard is ill-advising him because you're looking at a $7 trillion cost of war, 3 million lives lost, some 100,000 American troops will more than likely be lost if you go to war with Iran, when that $7 trillion could be used to totally redo the entire infrastructure of America and still have about 4 trillion left. So the thing is that America is headed in the wrong direction. Now there is a man who predicted where everything was going years ago, and we're going to show you a clip of that man. I'm going to read from the book that the Honorable Louis Farrakhan wrote called Torchlight for America. I'm just going to read it. It says, America is clearly suffering, and from my vantage point, America lies on her deathbed in dire need of guidance and a new direction. If you examine her vital signs, you will have to agree that they show America is steadily on the decline. Now, that's a fact. It's not the Mexicans coming across the border that's the reason that America is in decline. It's not the reason that America is in decline is because America's leadership. I'm not talking about your elected officials so much, but the real people who call the shots in this nation are leading America in the wrong direction. Now, here's what it says. The root of her suffering is basic immorality and vanity, where greed and lust and inordinate self-interest has become the way of life. When the desire for the realization of self-interest becomes excessive, the first casualty in this struggle is the truth. The leaders in the society, in their struggle to achieve inordinate self-interest, engage in hiding the light of truth from the American people. Okay, George Bush lied to start a war. Lyndon Baines Johnson lied to start the Vietnam War. It goes on and on. Lying and telling you that it's somebody else, it's some poor person that is the reason that you don't have the money that you used to have, that your lifestyle, your middle class lifestyle is harder to hold on to. It's not the Mexicans coming across the Rio Grande. It is the rich and powerful that are screwing you in the way that they have structured the economy in a way that is detrimental to your interests. Now, it's not anybody, it's not Al-Qaeda. It's not any of these other people that they're pointing you to. The reason that America is getting screwed has nothing to do with Al-Qaeda. It has nothing to do with Iran. It has nothing to do with whether or not you build that wall. It has everything to do with the fact that you have allowed black folks to be scapegoated, Mexicans to be scapegoated, while the rich and powerful redo the tax structure, weaken the unions that used to pay you a living wage, and now you're screwed, and they're still pointing the finger at the people who haven't even made the decisions that's got you in the situation that you're in. So now America is starving and needs to make war to get more oil. But here's let me continue. So the country is facing revolution because in the main, the government and leadership has hidden the truth and will not or does not have a solution for the suffering and the root problems of this country. Gross vanity, greed, lust, and inordinate self-interest have divided the country along the lines of class, race, and sex. We live in one country with two realities, separate and unequal. One rich, one poor, one white, one black, one predator, one prey, one skilled, one non-skilled, one slave master, and one slave. This was written, of course, and published in 1992. And it is as if it was written yesterday, what is in this book written by the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. Now, we're going to play you quite a few clips to set everything up like we need to. I just wanted to lay that wisdom as a base. This is the first show of 2020. We're going to go hard all through 2020 and beyond if the Lord says the same. Let's go ahead and roll that 4-minute clip, and I want everybody to pay attention. This was 6 months ago by the Honorable Louis Farrakhan.
Iran has some technology that shot down an unmanned drone. I think, if I'm not mistaken, that it was 20-some miles in outer space over territorial waters belonging to Iran, and Iran shot it down. I mean, when you shoot down something that's far out, your technology must be pretty heavy. And then Iran told them you had another plane there too with people on it. We could have shot that down as well. Now, the world is not afraid of America. But our president wants the world to fear him. So coming out of the White House, they said that if Iran purifies some of that uranium, Israel would attack Iran and America would back Israel. This is from the senator from South Carolina. What's that got to do with your subject? America's about to go to war. And when she goes to war, she wants black and brown bodies. Now you're useful. They don't give a doggone about how black lives matter until they want to use black lives to accomplish their wicked ends. They're trying to provoke Iran. I would like to say to the president, Mr. President, it would not be a wise move for you, because you're already $23 trillion in debt, and you don't have any money to prosecute a war. So if you don't have the money to prosecute a war, the Federal Reserve is printing money every day. So you will have to come to the Federal Reserve to borrow money that you don't have to prosecute a war in a time when Any little thing could cause the dollar to fall and the stocks to fall.
Getting worse.
If you look at Mr. Trump, Mr. Trump is a businessman. Certainly, he's done great things in the business world.
Got a lot of money from his dad that helped.
Oh, yeah, his dad was a nice fella. He ran a little dusty work. And like
millions of dollars. When you start with that, that's pretty good.
Like Mr. Joe Kennedy did.
That's right.
You know,
The booze, right.
White folk are allowed to be criminals and pass on money to their children to become clean. That's what Michael Corleone was trying to do. But Frank Lucas and none of our brothers who've done great in the drug culture, they were not allowed to have any money to pass on to their children that they could build on the era of the father that made something better for the children. But Mr. Trump is tearing away the skin of the onion of white civility. And the more he pulls the skin of that onion back, he's beginning to show something in the character of the whites that follow him, that they don't care what he says. He could say one thing this minute, another thing the next minute, and you could see that the man has a little problem. But he is exacerbating the race situation in America. And I will guarantee you, if he becomes president, he'll take America exactly where America is heading. He'll take you there on a rocket ship. How can a man say, he's not a thug, he's a diplomat, he's a president, we'll go into Iraq and we'll just take the oil. See, that's the thug coming out. That's that part of the nature of the beast that's manifesting. Well, if he becomes your president, you'll be just like him. And you know what the scripture says? Pharaoh was talking before his demise, and he openly said, me and my people are wicked. And when you get leadership that is not rooted in justice, then they begin to make the people just like themselves. Be careful, America. You're headed into the abyss of hell. And if you make a mistake in choosing your leaders, maybe you'll go there faster.
So I just wanted to play, number one, the first clip that you saw, brothers and sisters, was from July the 21st, a lecture that the Honorable Louis Farrakhan did at Mosque Mariam, the headquarters mosque of the Nation of Islam. And he delivered that lecture. It went live to some 120 locations around the U.S., and it has been viewed hundreds of thousands of times on various platforms since then. But I wanted to show you that he articulated perfectly the mind of the Trump administration and what they were attempting to do. Now, when you kill pretty much the second most powerful person in the country, when you whack that person, and as one person said, you literally bomb at an international airport, you become a terrorist. Now, you can call the person that you killed a terrorist, but you are, in fact, the real guilty one. You are, in fact, the terrorist. What they are doing, they're doing everything that they can to start a war with Iran and then try to make it look as though it's Iran's fault. We can go for just a second to the so-called attacks on the oil facilities in Saudi Arabia. Now, Saudi Arabia has all kinds of radar, all kinds of missile defense that she has purchased from America, that she's purchased from the West. You mean to tell me some of the most expensive, most sophisticated defense equipment and radar did not detect such a low-level yet devastating attack? You mean to tell me that they were not able to respond and to see where the attack was coming from? With all of the satellite imagery that's all over the place, there was a whole discussion as to what was the origin of the attack. Are you serious? And then even though the people in Yemen said, yeah, we did it, they decided to pin the tail, not on the donkey, but pin the tail on Iran to exacerbate these kinds of tensions. So I'm saying all that to say that when you look at what governments say, the government that is most likely lying has never been officials overseas. The government of America has been the government that, for the most part, is the most likely historically to be lying to its people. So when the Vietnamese in the 60s said we didn't attack any ship, nobody believed the Vietnamese, the North Vietnamese government. Nobody believed Ho Chi Minh. And what ended up happening? The war started. And it turns out that the government of North Vietnam, Ho Chi Minh, was telling the truth, and Lyndon Johnson, who was your president at the time, was in fact lying. That's a historical fact. That another government told the American people the truth, but your own government lied to you and spent billions of dollars and got 59,000 Americans killed based on a lie. That's just a historical fact. There are very few history teachers that will tell you otherwise. You can go right over there to ULL, to the history department, you can ask them. And they will tell you, okay? There's a book called Truth is the First Casualty about the Vietnam War. There's another book called Vietnam, Why We Fought by Kenneth Hubler that you can go and check out. And it documents the fact that it was a lie from the very beginning. And all of these wars, whether it be the Grenada thing where they said American citizens were in danger and Ronald Reagan did that, went into Grenada. Every conflict, there has been the significant use of lies to start every conflict, and we always find out just a few months later that they lied. They said in the first Gulf War that Saddam Hussein's troops were taking little babies out of incubators. Come to find out, it was the ambassador's daughter going into the Senate hearing and lying. Wasn't even anybody who knew anything about it firsthand. It was the ambassador took away his daughter in there lying about something that she didn't see because she wasn't even in the country at that time. Amazing. And we find out that that was a major thing that got the authorization for the first Gulf War. They used nothing but lies. And so here we are in 2020. And they're trying to run the same play on you. And for those of you who are looking, don't be mad at me. Be mad at the people who continue to run the same play on you. Now, don't we have a clip of the president? Well, let's deal with his tweets. Now, during the time that Obama, was in office, Donald Trump sent out tweets when the tensions with Iran were getting a little high. And of course, Barack Obama solved the problem by entering into a peace deal, which is the intelligent thing to do. But of course, that's been scrapped. But here's what Donald Trump said about Barack Obama. He said, in order to get elected, Barack Obama will start a war with Iran. Doesn't that sound familiar? He goes on to say, Barack Obama will attack Iran in order to get reelected. Then he goes on to say, and this was September the 16th, He says, I predict that President Obama will at some point attack Iran in order to save face. This was after the election. And then remember that I predicted a long time ago that President Obama will attack Iran because of his inability to negotiate properly, not skilled. Now, this is what he said. Now, he's not negotiating too well, and what is he trying to do? And the beautiful thing about it, brothers and sisters, is that God Almighty is allowing you to know about it. And if you continue to go in that direction and don't say anything and roll with the program when it is an obvious lie, really by a retroactive admission of his own, out of his own mouth, because he's in an election fight and feels insecure, he's under impeachment, and these Zionist Jews who are around him have always wanted to take Iran out. They don't care about your sons and daughters. They're gonna put Exxon Mobil over there. They're gonna put Shell over there, just like they did in Iraq. And your family is gonna be dead. We're gonna have trillions of dollars missing from the treasury. Our infrastructure and schools are still gonna be crumbling. And they're gonna be laughing all the way to the bank while you are walking around with no leg in the mall here in Lafayette or in Baton Rouge, okay, or half crazy. That's what's going to happen. And if you go for it with the information available for you to make the right decision about what to believe, then you're crazy. Now, do we have Donald Trump actually stating it?
Yes.
And we want to thank our director who's on top of it tonight.
Our president will start a war with Iran because he has absolutely no ability to negotiate. He's weak and he's ineffective. We have a real problem in the White House. So, I believe that he will attack Iran sometime prior to the election because he thinks that's the only way he can get elected. Isn't it pathetic?
Now, it is pathetic. And the words that he just spoke were words that are absolutely applicable to him. Okay? The only difference is he is trying to provoke Iran into making a move, and in making a move, he can then blame the war on them. But according to international law, when a government official is killed, singled out for murder, that is an act of war. When somebody, chief in your military, or a soldier is targeted by the military of another nation, that is an act of war. It was not only an act of war against Iran, but it was an act of war against Iraq, who is supposed to have sovereignty over that airport. And now there's a move, even in the puppet legislature of Iraq, to expel all American troops. So now this action has caused you already aren't wanted because you rape boys at detention centers, you rape women, you murder people indiscriminately, so people don't like you, you know. You're like, oh, they don't like America. They hate our freedoms. No, they hate your murder. That's what they hate. They hate your oppression. They hate the fact that you take their oil and give them nothing. You take their diamonds, their copper, their titanium, and you give them nothing in return for what you take. You only leave behind pollution. It is those kinds of things that are going to make people not like you. When you do people wrong, when you mistreat people, they're not going to like you. If I were to introduce, if you introduce yourself to me, you say, hi, Mr. Muhammad, how are you? And I suddenly began punching you in the face and cursing you out, you're not going to like me. And then I come back later and call a press conference and play the victim and says, so-and-so just don't understand me, you know. No, if I mistreat a person, they're not going to like you. And it's just that simple. Nobody wants a fight with the United States. Nobody wants a fight with the most powerful government in the world. Nobody wants that. But this is something that is being forced on Iran just as it was forced on Iraq, just as it was forced on Vietnam, just as it was forced on Libya. Okay, all of these countries never attacked America, but they were attacked by America. And there's a parallel in how we as black people are treated. Now, what do you look like with 1.3 million of your men in jail in America for mostly non-violent offenses? You have political prisoners, people who were Black Panthers back in the 70s who are political prisoners who have been in jail since the 70s. Some since 72, 71. There's a couple of brothers who have been in jail since 68 and 69 and are old. And as we went through the civil rights movement and the supposed integration, we forgot about the people who are still in jail for stuff that happened in the 60s and 70s. Like there are people in jail right now. Okay? We just had the Angola 3, the last one, someone to get out, and then one to get out and then just die right after he got out. And while he was dying, a new indictment in the Felicianas was being produced. So they literally chased the man until he fell into the grave. That's just how sick Louisiana is. Okay? And not just Louisiana, but the other 49 states as well are just that anti-black. And so as we look at the Jewish community that is talking about the rise of anti-Semitism and how dangerous it is. I'm looking at this on CNN. I'm listening to this on National Public Radio on how these Jews who felt safe in their community now no longer feel safe because there's a rise in anti-Semitism. Well, anti-Semitism is 0.1% of the anti-blackism, or we could rhyme with it and say the anti-blackitism is much higher, 1,000 times more than any anti-Semitism. You understand? So we pretty much, as black people, there's one black person on the Supreme Court who is all the way sold out. He's all the way gone. We can say he's skin folk, but we know he's not kinfolk, right? We know he's all the way gone. So essentially, we don't even have a black Supreme Court justice. But there are 3 Jewish Supreme Court justices. What are you talking about anti-Semitism? The head of Disney is a Jewish person. The commissioner of baseball, football, basketball, all Jewish people. Many of the owners of teams are Jewish people. The head of the Federal Reserve, the last one, the one before that, the one before that, the one before that, all the way down the line have been what? Jewish people. So when Jewish people talk about anti-Semitism, I'm wondering what they're talking about really. Because Abner Louima, who was sodomized with a plunger handle, was in a police station. This black man had a plunger handle put into his rectum. And it went into his rectum and it pierced his lower colon and went into his bladder to where fecal matter and urine mixed inside of his body. The person who put the plunger handle in his rectum was a Jewish officer. The person who held him down was another Jewish officer. The person who watched the door was what? Another Jewish officer. So the 3 officers involved in the sodomizing, this world famous case, were all what? Jewish officers. So I think that the Jewish community needs to look at the anti-blackitism that's in their community. That's what because we were getting blown up in churches all the way in the 60s. Okay? 4 little girls couldn't even go to Sunday school. So they're talking, and I don't think any place of worship should be attacked, whether it's a synagogue, a mosque, or a church. I don't think any grocery store should be attacked. I don't think any home should be attacked. But let's keep everything in perspective. Let's not go too far with this anti-Semitism crap. Sure, there are people in America who don't like Jews simply because they're Jews. But there are more people who don't like black people simply because we're black people. Would anybody disagree with that? Anti-blackitism is the main problem in America. The main problem in America is how she has treated the 46 to 51 million descendants of slaves is America's number one problem. And we as a people in 2020 gotta take an assessment of the course of action that we've taken as a people and what has that yielded for us as a people. Okay? What has that yielded? At one time, in the late 60s, early 70s, we had 1,500 black elected officials across America. Now we're at around 11,000. At that time, we had 80% of our children were being born to two-parent homes with a husband and a wife. We didn't have all this LGBT crap. It was a man and a woman, and the man knew he was a man, and the woman knew she was a woman. We didn't have all this other stuff going on. And now, with all of these black elected officials, black businesses are down, our communities are dilapidated, the U.S. government that we sought to integrate with went overseas and dropped crack cocaine in your community just as you were rising, dropped crack cocaine in your community, decimated your community, then put your young men in jail for the dope that they brought into the country. And these men are still in jail, some of them doing life. We can't talk about any remedy. And this is why you have to be loyal. As long as you got 1 million of your brothers on lockdown, 6 or 7 million other people with felonies on their record, white men legally opening up marijuana dispensaries, which is the same thing that some people are doing 25 years in federal prison for. They are opening up legal dispensaries all over Illinois. They're going to be doing it in Michigan, and people are still in jail for weed, and these people are opening up weed dispensaries all over the place. Now, white folk are opening it up, but you still got the brother in jail, some of who've been in jail sometime 20 years for a whole bunch of weed, the same weed that is now being sold on the streets of Chicago and at a dispensary. Really? Now, I'm not an advocate of the use of weed. I'm just saying, let's not have these people in jail for something that the government perpetrated against the black community. If the government brought the dope here, then they are the people that are culpable. We don't bring it in here on the trucks and planes and submarines that it comes in here on. Yet, even though we sell less drugs than whites, even though we use less drugs than whites, we're in jail 10, 20 times more than whites for the same thing. And as we talk about where we go from here, if you're not talking about justice for all of these people who are marked for life and who are in jail for life, if you're not talking about relief for them, you're really running your mouth for nothing at all. All you're talking about is a couple of jobs in city government, a few more elected officials, a few more black districts where the people are going to be elected and then still sell out anyway. Because keep in mind, we've had black mayors. I know the last black mayor that Baton Rouge had, we might as well, in my view, we could have had anybody in there. Okay, we got a black mayor, but we didn't get any good black policy. And we need to look at where we went wrong with Barack Obama. Now, as I look at social media and I look at the news, we got Sheila Jackson Lee. We got other black people that are rightfully coming out and speaking out against Trump and his aggression against Iran and his policies. But I want to say this. When Barack Obama murdered the man who was the main one that helped black people during apartheid South Africa, the man who set up no interest loans for African countries, when Barack Obama murdered this man and blew his country up and killed 50,000 people in a couple of months, Sheila Jackson Lee, excuse me, none of these people said anything because it was politically expedient not to. I'm glad they're talking now. I'm glad that they're making sense now. But you should have went to Barack Obama before he did the same thing to Libya. And on this show, this Community Defender, we were against that. It doesn't matter if it's Democrat or Republican. We are a show of principles. And those principles remain the same no matter who's in office. It's all about what can you do for my people. And if the answer is nothing, whether you're Barack Obama or whether you're Donald Trump, I can't ride with you. It's all about 50 million people. It's not about one man. And I know that we were proud to have somebody who's our color being in the White House. But after the pride was over, the problems remained. And those problems are still here. I just want us to look at that. Look at what has happened. Look at who's elected. Look at the fact that America, for the most part, and the media for the most part, is still stuck on stupid. And when you look at Tucker Carlson, who came out against the war, and he's not exactly a liberal person over there on Fox News. Geraldo Rivera pretty much called it a lie that he was saying intelligence indicated these unnamed sources. It only means we lied. We're not going to name the source because the source is we pulled it out of our butt. That's the source. It is a named source because I just named it. It's out of your butt, Donald Trump. That's where you pulled the intelligence out of. The crap that you threw on us, you pulled it right out of the place where crap comes from, right out of your butt. And then you threw it at the American people to give your supporters some sort of string by which they could pull and then still support your foolishness. I don't want to die in Iran while 1.3 million black men are still in jail, while black families have only $5 in wealth for every $100 bill that a white family has in wealth, while working more hours a week. Do you know black people, on average, work more hours a week than a white man with a job? Do y'all know that? And we have less wealth? You think that's due to the fact that we're not working hard as hell each and every day? We're working hard, but it's not helping. We're not getting a fair shake in this system at all. So why keep begging somebody who has decided not to accept you to accept you? Why try to get somebody who doesn't love you, who never has loved you, to love you? You understand? I mean, some of y'all would say it. Some of y'all, when y'all meet a woman, y'all will call that woman one time. If she don't answer the phone, y'all might call her twice. And what are y'all gonna say? If she ain't gonna show no interest in me, I ain't gonna be running after her. Isn't that what we say as men? But when it comes to the white man, he can kick us, sick dogs on us, build jails for us, allow our schools, blow us away unarmed on the side of the road, and what will we do? We're still running after him for acceptance. But we won't even call a fine black woman 3 times because we don't want to run after nobody who's not showing similar interest. You understand? I'm not knocking your logic. I'm just saying you should apply it to your open enemy. You should apply it to your oppressor. that you're not going to run after him. So in 2020, we want to have 2020 vision. We want to have vision that is clear about what's going on. And the beautiful thing about it is that everything that Donald Trump is doing, he ratted on his own self years previous. Now we're in the middle of an election. Now there's looming war with Iran, threats. He gets to stand there and look and see a lot of these rednecks don't think they have a strong president unless he's killing somebody. You don't think you have a strong president unless he's killing somebody, right? And you know the tune that comes on before Hannity, there's this collage, this audio collage of different music and things that set the tone. And one of the lines is in one of the songs, "We'll put a boot in your ass is the American way," right? Mm-hmm. That whole thing is that's the thing that they feed off of.
Like 9/11 when he did.
That is what they roll with. And the bottom line of it is, like Minister Farrakhan just said, the world is not afraid of America anymore. And you already, as the Honorable Louis Farrakhan said, you're $23 trillion in debt already. A fight with Iran will put you at, what is it? It'll put you at, right now, we're at almost $500 billion. We're going to be at roughly $910 billion in 8 years. The U.S. is slated to be at $910 billion in just the interest to service the debt. You understand? So we're going to be spending $1 trillion a year to get nothing but interest that we're paying on the national debt. And you can't blame that on black folks. You can't blame that kind of stupidity on the Mexicans coming across the border. A wall is not going to help you. What's going to help you is to have some good sense in government. Now, I want to commend some of the good decisions which are very few in American politics. But in this state, over the past few years, there has been not enough, but there has been more money spent on education. There have been more people released from jail. There needs to be a lot more. There needs to be a lot more of that done. But it's, even though it's very small, it's in the right direction. Unfortunately, the stupidity of society is not going to allow for this government or almost any administration to do what needs to be done, which is why black leadership needs to sign on to what God wants, which is for us to do something for ourselves. I want to thank everybody that is tuning in for the 20.5 years of being able to be with you on the Community Defender. We're a few months from 21 years with you. And what we intend to do is to continue to bring you a perspective that is real, a perspective that is true, so that you will know how to advocate for yourselves and for your families, and you will know what thus saith the Lord at the end of the day, which is that the black man and woman must get up and do something for ourselves. Our dependence on benevolent politicians has not worked. We've had a few good politicians, a few of them, but they've been too few to make the kind of difference that would need to be made. I want to congratulate our judge, Judge Guidry, right? Good Judge Landry, and her victory over the wickedness of the prosecutors. We want to definitely thank Sister Khadijah and those who went down to that courtroom to support our sister who is an elected judge. We definitely appreciate that, and those kind of things have to continue. We know that this enemy is fighting against justice each and every moment of his life. He's fighting to maintain the condition of oppression day and night. And so we definitely appreciate the courage of this judge and those who backed her in her position as an elected judge, elected by the people. And all she did was speak the truth about the biasness of this system against black folks. How much time we got?
1 minute.
1 minute. I want to, of course, thank everybody for tuning in to the Community Defender. We're going to be right back at you at the same time, same station, with another edition. We're going to research a few more things to make sure that we shed additional light on these issues that confront our community. We want to wish everybody a prosperous 2020 as we move forward as a people to a glorious future in God's name. May Allah bless each and every one of you and bless your families in 2020 and beyond. And let's keep up the fight for freedom, justice, and equality. Assalamu alaikum.